Ukrainians stand with Ukraine.
It's like a rocks on it outside. It's got real. Real rocks on it.
Yeah, I love that song. Always.
Because my
You don't do that close. Just stand normal. Yeah, get closer where you were before.
Look at the way dogs are, right?
say we don't know the other one. Just like a group of 10, just take one, just get 10, keeps it 10. Census. I haven't heard that before.
Welcome! Вітаю вас! Thank you all for coming! Слава Україні! I'm just going to ask those that are not elected officials or official representatives of other ethnic groups or organizations to please remove yourselves from the stairs. My name is Tamara McCall, and I'm a proud Ukrainian Canadian. We'd like to start by acknowledging that we are speaking to you from Treaty 1 territory, ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories, acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. For the past 8 years, Ukraine has been fighting a war with Russia and Russian-backed mercenaries on its eastern borders. More than 14,000 people have been killed, 30,000 wounded, and 1.5 million internally displaced. It has been a festering war to which the Ukrainian people had almost become accustomed. Today, however, the world is a tragically different place after Russia's President Vladimir Putin unleashed a full-scale war. Unleashed a full-scale war in the heart of Europe, our beloved Ukraine. Russia's declaration of war on February 24th is a clear violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and violates Russia's obligations under both international law and the Charter of the United Nations. This unprovoked and brutal attack is not only a threat to Ukraine and its people, but a threat to freedom, fundamental human rights, and democracy around the world. Today, anyone who shares these values stands in solidarity with Ukraine and is a Ukrainian. As Canadians, we are proud of the swift and strong response from our government, but clearly more needs to be done. We call upon Canada and the rest of the free world to rally to Ukraine's aid. More devastating economic sanctions must be adopted now against Russia's economy, banks, and Russian assets in the West, including Russia's removal from the SWIFT financial system. Each day, Europe is purchasing more than $500 million worth of Russian gas, and it is using the SWIFT system to make those payments. The source of funding for Putin's imperial and immoral war needs to be cut off. Every day of delay means the death of more innocent people. Additionally, more air and naval defense systems and other defensive weapons must be provided to Ukraine to help her stand against Putin and his terrorist regime. We also call upon Canada and our allies to immediately declare and enforce a no-fly zone over Ukrainian territory to protect civilians from Russian airstrikes and bombardment. In the trying days and weeks ahead, Ukraine will also require substantial economic and humanitarian support. We call upon Canada and Canadians to open their hearts and give generously. Together, let's rally in support of Ukraine and its people. Slava Ukraini! I would now ask that we observe a moment of silence for all of the innocent lives lost during the past few days. Вічна їм пам'ять. Дякую. I'll now pass the mic over to my colleague Kalina to offer some remarks in Ukrainian.
Дорогі українці, мені, як і усім вам, сьогодні дуже боляче. Але ми мусимо цю біль скерувати в конструктивне русло. Ми мусимо працювати і допомагати Україні. Україна не може чекати, поки санкції заставлять Росію зупинитися. Світ не може стояти осторонь, поки Путін шматує Україну. Санкції, які було введено, недостатньо, щоб зупинити агресора. Наші хлопці і дівчата – герої і молодці. Путін не чекав такого опору. Але Україна одна наодинці зі страшним ворогом. Україна надіється на діаспору, надіється на нас, щоб змусити світ зробити усе можливе і неможливе. Європа продовжує купувати російський газ. Щодня
No, that's not good. But they probably also support us.
Щодня європейські країни платять Росії.
Can we get... Oh, they have Ukrainian flag. They actually support in Ukraine.
500 мільйонів доларів через систему SWIFT. Це в той час, коли російська армія атакує мирне населення і житлові райони. Це все нагадує 1938 рік. Невже ми дозволимо, щоб ціну за газ платили життям українців? Наголошуйте, сьогодні Україна, завтра решта Європи. Нагадуйте світові про те, що під час Другої світової війни Гітлер використовував цю ж риторику при захопленні Чехословакії і Польщі. Продовжуйте писати вашим представникам в парламенті і в уряді. Говоріть з друзями, пояснюйте друзям, що відбувається. Просіть, нехай вони теж лобіюють політиків, нехай надсилають кошти. Сьогодні це інформаційна війна. Поширюйте правдиву інформацію. Чим більше людей знає, що насправді відбувається в Україні, тим краще. Ми просимо НАТО захистити наше небо і закрити його від ворожих ракет. Так було зроблено в Лівії і в Ізраїлі, коли НАТО закрило небо і всі повітряні шляхи над країною. Ми просимо, щоб Європа закрила для Росії SWIFT і ввела ембарго на газ і на всю торгівлю. Ми просимо, щоб уся торгівля з Росією була припинена сьогодні і зараз. Але найбільше ми просимо надати Україні зброю, необхідні системи протиповітряної, протитанкової і морської оборони. Нам необхідна гуманітарна та економічна допомога. Ворог руйнує наші будинки, лікарні і школи. Ми просимо світ не допустити подальших втрат людського життя. Тримаємося, українці! Сьогодні нам найбільше потрібна протитанкова оборона. Співаємо канадський гімн. We're gonna sing the Canadian national anthem now. Я би хотіла запросити вести нас в молитві пароха митрополичої катедри Української католицької церкви імені святих Володимира і Ольги, отця Шведа. Будь ласка.
Дякую. Слава Україні! Кожен має свій фронт. Ми також на духовному фронті допомагаємо. So I would like to invite all believers now to support Ukraine with Lord's Prayer. Let us pray together, Ave Father. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Ave Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Давайте ще також дуже коротку молитву українською мовою помолимося. Молимося до Тебе, владику миру і спокою нашого, щоб як щезає дим, так нехай щезнуть вороги наші, як прах розсипається від лиця вітру, так нехай розвіються їхні злі думки, знищити Україну нашу. Господи, тихомир тих, що противляться заповідям, тих, хто противиться постановам Твоїм. Поверни їм пам'ять Твоєї заповіді, блаженні миротворці. Вони синами Божими назвуться. А для тих, хто противиться цій заповіді, пошли гнів, скорботу й ангелів лютих, які вселять в них страх і пам'ять про те, що і вони себе християнами називають. Бо Ти єси захист і перемога, і спасення для тих, хто надіється на Тебе. І Тобі славу висилаємо Отцю, Сину, Святому Духові, нині повсякчас і на віки вічні.
Я би також хотіла попросити до молитви отця Олександра Гаркавого, настоятеля парафії Українського православного собору Святої Покрови.
Слава Україні! Слава Ісусу Христу! Молимось Тобі, Господу Богу нашому, щоб вислухав голос моління нас грішних, охоронив всіх людей України нашої в час тяжких випробувань та помилував рабів своїх, воїнів, щоб зберіг їх від смертоносної рани, від всякої хвороби душевної і тілесної, щоб охоронив від усякої скорботи, лиха, гніву і недолі, та дав їм повернутися здоровими і щасливими до родин своїх. Всемилостивий Господи, вислухай і помилуй. А тих, кому назначено буде життя своє віддати, за країну свою, за нарід свій, подай, Господи, вічний спокій і збережи їх у царстві Твоїм небесним. Во ім'я Отця і Сина і Святого Духа. Во ім'я Отця і Сина і Святого Духа. Амінь. Во ім'я Отця і Сина і Святого Духа. Амінь. Слава Україні!
Зараз будемо всі співати «Боже великий».
I would now like to ask the President of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, Manitoba Provincial Council, Joanne Lewandowski, to say a few words.
Шановна громада, дорогі друзі, honored guests, dear brothers and sisters of Manitoba's Ukrainian community, and our many, many non-Ukrainian friends who joined us here today. I am so glad to see so many of you here at the rally today, standing in solidarity with Ukraine. 3 days ago, Russia did the unimaginable. For the first time since the end of the Second World War, war was declared on a sovereign nation, and Russian airstrikes commenced simultaneously from 3 sides on more than 20 Ukrainian cities, not only targeting major infrastructure, but also hitting residential areas and killing numerous civilians. Yesterday, the capital, Kyiv, came under assault. People are hiding in the underground metro and in basements. Those who can are rushing for Ukrainians' westernmost border to Poland, Hungary, Romania, and the Czech Republic. The UN estimates that there will be up to 5 million Ukrainian refugees, not counting internally displaced persons. The Ukrainian Canadian Congress, Manitoba Provincial Council is grateful for the outpouring of care and assistance we have seen. We thank the federal government for its economic and military assistance to Ukraine and the sanctions that have been imposed on the Russian Federation, including yesterday's announcement affecting Putin and his immediate circle directly. We thank the province of Manitoba for its moral support and a donation of $150,000 to the Joint Canada-Ukraine Foundation and the Ukrainian Canadian Congress Humanitarian Appeal Fund. Thank you. We would also like to acknowledge the City of Winnipeg and the province of Manitoba for agreeing to light up the Winnipeg sign at the forts and the legislative building respectively in Ukrainian national colors. All of this is much appreciated, but it's not nearly enough.
Not enough!
People are being killed as I speak. You have all seen the videos and photos of the waging war, of the missile strikes, of the 13 heroes of Snake Island withstanding a Russian warship, and the thousands of ordinary civilians lining up at the military recruitment offices, donating blood or making Molotov cocktails. We call on the Government of Canada to provide more defensive weapons to Ukraine, particularly anti-aircraft and anti-naval missiles, to strongly urge NATO to declare Ukraine a no-fly zone to prevent, or at least to minimize missile hits and the loss of innocent lives, to commit additional economic and humanitarian aid to Ukraine, and to implement even more severe sanctions on the Russian state-owned industries and the oligarchs. That has to be done now. The situation is changing hourly. Just in the past few hours, we have learned that both Canada and Germany have reconsidered their positions regarding barring Russia from the SWIFT international financing system. Germany has retracted and will now provide Ukraine with defensive weapons in addition to the used helmets, and the 3 NATO countries, the Czech Republic, the Netherlands, and Portugal, have announced that they will send troops to support Ukrainian servicemen immediate action is required. Tomorrow might be too late. We call on the province of Manitoba, provincial arms of the Canadian political parties, and on the city of Winnipeg to act unanimously in support of Ukraine and to make even greater humanitarian assistance available. And finally, I turn to the citizens of Manitoba. Regardless of your ancestry, please continue to show compassion and to offer your prayers for the people of Ukraine. Write to your elected officials urging them to defend democracy and the rule of law in Ukraine. And for those who are able, please donate to the CUF UCC Humanitarian Appeal Fund or to one of the other reputable funds that have been established by a number of international charitable and community organizations, including the Canadian Red Cross or UNICEF's emergency funds for Ukraine. In conclusion, I would sincerely like to thank all of you for participating today. Reverend Fathers, government representatives, members of the media, friends and acquaintances from the Ukrainian community, and those representing the other ethnic groups, and finally, to all of our young members of our community who have really stepped up to the plate and have so professionally organized this event. Всім вам щиро дякую. Слава Україні! Героям слава! Glory to Ukraine, glory to our heroes. I thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Slava Ukraini! Slava Ukraini! Slava Ukraini! To share information about the Humanitarian Appeal Fund, I'd like to introduce Ostap Skripnik, representative of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, Manitoba Provincial Council, to the Canada-Ukraine Foundation. Ostap?
Слава Україні! Україна воює, а не вмирає! Premier, Mayor, members of government, members of the provincial cabinet, members of the federal cabinet, everybody, thank you for coming. We also like to, my name is Ostap Skripnik, I'm the Vice President for Manitoba of the Canada-Ukraine Foundation. We'd like to especially thank the government of Manitoba for its very generous contribution to the humanitarian aid appeal that we are now having. You can go to cufoundation.ca to donate. Right now, the fund in several days is closer to $4 million, and we hope to make it over 5 by the end of the week. As Joanne said, there are lots of other groups that are raising money. Be careful about fakes, but support reputable humanitarian projects. Canada-Ukraine Foundation and the Ukrainian Congress, the money that we're raising through our humanitarian appeal is mostly, we've already bought food stocks and medicines in Ukraine before the war started. We're going to try to spend as much of the money that we get in Ukraine. Of course, we'll be helping displaced people, hospitals, and into the future. Because when we win this war, there'll be long years of reconstruction and work. So we need money now, we need money in the future. Keep us in your hearts, keep Ukraine in your hearts. Slava Ukraini!
Дякую, Остап. We're pleased to have with us today elected officials from the 3 levels of government who will now provide brief greetings. Did you see how I said brief there? First, I'll call upon the Honorable Dan Vendel, Federal Minister of Northern Affairs and Member of Parliament of the St. Boniface-St. Vital riding.
Thank you so much, and it's so heartwarming to see so many Manitobans and Winnipeggers here in solidarity with Ukraine. I want to acknowledge my Liberal members of Parliament, federal Liberals members of Parliament, Jim Carr, Terry Dugan, and Kevin Lamoureux. Thank you for being here. This week, Ukrainians woke up to the brutal, terrifying reality of war. President Putin has launched a horrific, unprovoked attack on Ukraine, a sovereign nation, including missile strikes to Kiev. Russia has needlessly put the lives of innocent people at risk, violated international treaties, and launched the greatest threat to European stability since World War II. Canada is unequivocal in our condemnation of Russia's unprovoked and unjustified attack on the sovereign democratic state of Ukraine. President Putin's brazen disregard for international law, for democracy, and for human life are a massive threat to security and to peace around the world. We stand united and steadfast in our support of Ukraine's sovereignty, and we stand in solidarity with the Ukrainian people's right to decide their own future in a free and democratic state. Je veux être très clair. L'attaque à la Russie contre l'Ukraine est aussi une attaque contre la démocratie, la loi internationale et la liberté. Make no mistake, Russia's attack on Ukraine is also an attack on democracy, on international law, and on human rights and on freedom.
Yeah!
Democracies and democratic leaders everywhere must stand together to defend these principles and stand firmly against authoritarianism. You have helped build Manitoba, you have helped build Canada, you are proud of your culture and your heritage, and you don't back down, and Canada will not back down either. Canada's support for Ukraine, Canada's support for democracy, and for human rights will be unwavering. Thank you very much.
Thank you!
Thank you, Minister Vendel. Next, I would like to call upon the host of today's rally, who opened the doors to the legislature to us, the Premier of Manitoba, the Honourable Heather Stephenson.
Thank you very much, and it's so great to see you, all these incredible supporters of Ukraine here with us this evening.
Thank you all so much for being here. I want to thank the Ukrainian Canadian Congress as well for putting this on for us all today. It's great to be here with all of you. I also just want to draw your attention across the street to Memorial Park, where earlier today we raised the Ukrainian flag to show that we are here for our Ukrainian Manitobans, for Ukrainians all around the world. We are here for you. Today I spoke to Katya earlier. She's from a city, Nova Kharkovka, in Ukraine. It's a city the size of Brandon. It's under siege by Russian forces right now. Missiles, armored tanks, soldiers are occupying her home city. To you, Katya, we are here for you. We are here for your family. We're here for everyone in Ukraine. We know that there's more stories like you. Your family is suffering. There's other families suffering. Many of you have families over in Ukraine now. Our message to you is that we are here for you. There are so many people around the world, other rallies that are taking place right now in other countries in solidarity for Ukraine. And we thank them for that. We thank them and thank you for being here tonight. Tonight, we are sending Vladimir Putin a message. Manitoba stands with the people of Ukraine, and we stand against this unjustified invasion. Heinous attack on a free nation with a proud history is a shameful violation of international law. Here on the legislative grounds, there is a monument recognizing the horrors of the 1932 Holodomor, Joseph Stalin's forced famine that killed millions of Ukrainians by starvation. The Ukrainian people have suffered under the rule of an evil dictator before. Manitobans and all Canadians must do everything we can to make sure that never happens again. Manitoba supports all Canadian efforts to impose crippling economic sanctions against Russia, and we will do everything we can to help Ukrainians fleeing this horrible war. I have informed the federal government that we will do our part to take in Ukrainian refugees looking for a safe haven, and we will work with them to expedite Ukrainian immigration applications through our provincial nominee program. On Thursday, I spoke to John Lewandowski. We contributed $150,000 to the Ukrainian Canadian Congress for humanitarian aid to displaced families and refugees, with more to come as needed. And yesterday, Manitoba liquor marts pulled all Russian products from their shelves. Tonight, we stand with millions of people around the world in support of our families and our friends in Ukraine. As Manitobans, we stand in support of our allies and our friends in Ukraine. Thank you for showing what Manitobans are all about. We are here for you, Ukraine. Thank you, Premier Stephenson. To bring greetings from the city of Winnipeg, we have with us the Mayor of Winnipeg, His Worship Brian Bowman.
Well, it might be a little bit cool, but this warms my heart to see so many Winnipeggers out here standing with Ukraine. Thank you for being here. I'm joined by my council colleagues because we want to communicate a very clear message. This war is unjustified, it is illegal, it needs to stop, and we are here with our Ukrainian Canadian members of our community that are here and throughout our country. Right now, communities and cities across Canada, from coast to coast to coast, are having gatherings like this, and I want to give you a huge shout out, and I'd like to ask you to give a huge shout out for the Ukrainian Canadian Congress for bringing us together today to show this solidarity to the world. What I really appreciate seeing, and I hope you do as well, is seeing every level of government, every political party coming together to stand in unity, to communicate very clearly, we stand with Ukraine. That includes the city of Winnipeg. You know, building on the hospital, you can tell my lips are frozen out here, right? Yeah. And I'm from Winnipeg. These lands that we all inhabit, of course, were originally, of course, our indigenous people were here, but Ukrainian and Canadians are so much of the very fabric of this city. The very fabric. Whether you've been here for a week, a generation, or 4 generations, like my wife Tracy, who used to be Tracy Kozar before she took my name. You know, right now the colors that we see before us, they're the same colors as the city of Winnipeg. We've got the Winnipeg sign lit up, we've got a flag outside City Hall, because today and going forward, we're all Ukrainian. So we will be there with you. Thank you everybody for being here. Ukraine and the people of Ukraine are on, history is on their side. Peace is on their side. Thank you for standing for freedom, for democracy, and for peace tonight and always. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. From the official opposition, also present today is Wab Canoe, Manitoba leader of the New Democratic Party of Canada.
I'm Wab Canoe, and this is our Manitoba NDP team. We are here today to pledge our absolute support for the people of Ukraine. To Ukrainians in Manitoba and across Canada. And I want to say that we are all very moved by the people of Ukraine. Men, women, civilians who are standing up to defend their homeland. The politicians in the street, the guards at Snake Island, they are all heroes. And it is so very good to see Manitobans coming together like this today, because we have been divided. We have been divided by politics, we've been divided by social issues, but it is time for Manitobans to come together and unite against a common enemy. And we know the name of that enemy, it is Vladimir Putin. And I want to be clear, the enemy is not the people of Russia. There are many good Russian people speaking out against the war, speaking out in favor of peace. The enemy is Putin and those who enable him. So it's good to see you all coming here today so that we can stand together. But I'm not surprised. Because what I know of Ukrainian people is this. Ukrainians will defend their land. Ukrainians will defend their language. Ukrainians will defend their culture. And Ukrainians will defend their independence. And I also know something about Manitobans, and I'm here today as a Manitoban. I can tell you this about the people of Manitoba. Our support for the people of Ukraine is never ending. Our resolve in the face of Putin's aggression is without limits.
That's right.
And our memory of the heroes in Ukraine right now will last forever. Slava Ukraini! My colleague Mark Wasiliou to say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Marko Vasilyev. I'm the MLA for Fort Garry, and I'm a proud Ukrainian Canadian. And many of you would know, growing up in the 70s and 80s in Manitoba as a Ukrainian was a political act. We didn't have a country. It was under Soviet oppression. They Russified the Ukraine, and simply speaking our language was oppressed and suppressed by the Russian government. And one of the most chilling things that have happened in the last week is Putin went on the TV and said Ukraine didn't exist, that our language didn't exist, that our people didn't exist. So this is more than about territory. This is about our right to exist. This is about our right to be Ukrainian and to pass it down to my children and their children and your children's children. We call on this government to do more. We should be matching dollar for dollar the donations of every Manitoban who is giving to our humanitarian funds. Many of you, like my family, came here as refugees after World War II. Manitoba was safe harbor. It gave us peace, it gave us stability, and it allowed us to prosper. We cannot slam the door on those that need us now, and we have to ensure that we are a leader in Canada bringing in refugees, and we call on this government to work with the federal government, to work with the business community, and to work with the Ukrainian community to make sure we bring as many Ukrainians here to Manitoba. And finally, we need to call on this government to defund Putin's war machine. We need to make sure not 1 ounce of Russian gas goes into a Manitoba gas tank. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you, Mr. Canoe. Miigwech. I'd now like to ask Dougal Lamont, Manitoba leader of the Liberal Party of Canada, to provide a brief greeting.
Thank you to the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, Miroslava, Alexandra Skranyi, Markian, and Tamara McCall, and so many others for making this happen. You know, I grew up in the 1970s and 1980s, and I remember the Cold War. I remember the threat of nuclear war and bombs dropping on our heads in the 1980s, of not knowing whether junior high, whether there'd be a world for us, and there was. We did see a different future. I remember the fall of the Berlin Wall, and I remember Ukraine becoming a sovereign country. And so much of Ukraine's liberation was because of your work here in Canada, here in Manitoba, here in Winnipeg, where Ukrainians built and shared and found a place where you could preserve and promote your language and culture. The invasion of Ukraine is not the action of a strong man, but of a weak man. Desperate to disrupt, divide, and undermine our allies and ourselves, to disrupt Ukraine, to crush Ukraine, and to divide us and our allies. And there is no question that democracy is under threat, because there are people who've been seeking to pull it apart for decades. But democracy is stronger and has greater strength than any tyrant can shake. My grandfather came to Manitoba in 1903, working on the railroad. He worked side by side with Ukrainians, and on this very day, February 26th in 1937, he delivered a speech in this building. In the middle of the Depression, when there was instability around the world and democracy seemed to be in retreat. He said, I've been in this country a long time. I saw the farmers break the prairie with a yoke of oxen. I saw the railway builders lay the rails across the plains. The young man clatter over the cobblestones in France. And I saw people bear with patience the burden of the Depression. I have seen enough to believe that democracy has sufficient strength to solve its own problems. And there are Russian oligarchs who are backing Putin, and they have investments around the world, and their names keep showing up in tax havens. And our disagreement is not with the people of Russia, because if Putin and the oligarchs who back him really believed in what is best for Russia, they wouldn't be hiding their money in some offshore account in Panama or Malta. They'd be putting it back into Russia.
Right.
They'd be building businesses. They would not be invading a sovereign and independent state. But Ukrainians survived and persevered and outlasted oppression. You have survived and outlasted famine. You have survived and outlasted war, and you will survive and outlast Vladimir Putin and Russia. We are gathered here today in Manitoba to say with a single voice, we stand with Ukraine. We say with a single voice to the people of Ukraine, you are not alone in your struggle, and your struggle and identity will not be denied. Because your struggle is our struggle. And our struggle is to repair the world, to make it more free, to make it more democratic, to make it more just. We did not create this world that we lived in. We inherited it, but we do not have to leave it to our children. We stand with you today and always. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you, Mr. Lamont. Merci. It's getting cold, I know. We're almost through the political speeches, I promise. Let's maybe warm up our vocal cords here a little bit. Slava Ukraini! Slava Ukraini! Slava Ukraini! So also present with us today are members of the Canada-Ukraine Parliamentary Friendship Group, who will bring brief greetings. First, I'll call on James Bazan, Conservative MP for Selkirk Interlake.
Slava Ukraini! I'm proud to be here as a Ukrainian Canadian. I'm a proud Canadian. I'm a patriotic Ukrainian. I also have the honor to wear the badge of being banned from Russia by Vladimir Putin. So there's nothing I can say that he can't do to already hurt me. He's a war criminal. He's a barbarian. And he's the only person that can stop the war in Ukraine right now. And we have to bring all the pressures in the world to bear upon him and his inner circle. You know, I'm proud to be here with Ted Falk, Raquel Dancho, and Marty Morantz, my Conservative colleagues. And I bring greetings on behalf of Candace Bergen, the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, and also the Member of Parliament for Portage Lisgar. She can't be here today because she's already in Ottawa. And one of the things that we worked on this morning, we had a conference call yesterday and a conference call early this morning, and we came out with a number of measurable items that we think can really help Ukraine and hold Putin and his kleptocrats and the oligarchs that support him to account. We agree with the actions taken by the Government of Canada. Russia has to be removed from the SWIFT system. We have to break their financial back. Putin and his inner circle, like Sergei Lavrov, have to be sanctioned. All their assets frozen. We know that they needed lethal defensive weapons. We've been calling on that as Conservatives since 2018, including providing anti-tank missiles and all other defensive weapons they need to protect the homeland. I can also say that there's more to be done. Everything has to be on the table, and I hear Joanne and everyone in the UCC and all the demands that they're making, and all of those have to be brought forward. We also are saying that the Government of Canada could quickly and rightfully
expel the ambassador of Russia from Canada. We need to recall Canada's ambassador from Moscow. We have to get CRTC to drop the license of RT, Russia Today television. We have to stop the propaganda machine. We need to isolate Putin and the Kremlin on the world stage. Kick him out of the G20. Kick him out of the OSCE. And while we're at it, get them out of the UN since they don't respect the Charter and the international rule of law. And instead of talking about refugees, let's make visa-free travel from Ukraine to Canada. Eliminate all the red tape. Let them come. We need to protect those that aren't able to stay and fight. You know, earlier today, I was part of a conference call with members of parliament from Ukraine. And the stories that they're telling and the help that they need, they expect us as Ukrainian Canadians, they expect Canada as Ukraine's best friend to do everything in our power to make sure that Canada, our NORAD and NATO allies, step up and help end this war. Putin has to get out of Ukraine. Putin has to go to The Hague and face a war trial for all the crimes he's committed. Slava Ukraini! Slava Ukraini! Дякую.
Thank you, Mr. Bazan.
That was the best speech so far.
I just want to let you all know there are over 5,000 people here right now. Way to go, Winnipeg! This is amazing! Lastly, also from the Canada-Ukraine Parliamentary Friendship Group, is Terry Duguid, Liberal MP for Winnipeg South.
Slava Ukraini! Добрый день, thank you. I think it's Добрый вечер now. What an inspiring sight I see here in Winnipeg tonight, this afternoon. Thank you to the UCC for gathering us today on what is just such a terrible situation, not only for Ukraine, but for the world. And thank you all for coming to support Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. Friends, you know, I've been watching TV like you have. I was in Luhansk in 2004 as an election observer, where Putin has been meddling in elections for years, where he has been fighting a war of attrition with the Ukrainian people. I have been there on the streets of Kyiv in the aftermath of the Revolution of Dignity, and let me tell you, my heart breaks for the friends and families that I know there, that are in terror, that are in pain, that are experiencing violence. And what I know, friends, what I know is that the Ukrainian people have an indomitable spirit. The Ukrainian people will prevail. Freedom and democracy will prevail. Putin's aggression, his war on the people of Ukraine will not succeed because of that indomitable spirit. Putin's war on Ukraine is not only an assault on Ukraine, it's an assault on democracy, it's an assault on the world, it's an assault on the world order, and that cannot be left to stand. So, we must stand with Ukraine, all of us. James and I are in different political parties, but there is no light between us. There is no light between the levels of government. All Canadians stand with Ukraine. All parliamentarians stand with Ukraine. And our government, the government of Canada and our Prime Minister stands with Ukraine. And we will be there with armaments. We will be there with humanitarian assistance. We will be there with help for refugees. And we will be there with sanctions, and we will make Putin pay. Slava Ukraini! Героям слава!
Thank you, Mr. Duguid. I would also like to acknowledge the many other elected officials who are with us today, standing in solidarity with Ukraine. From the members of the Legislative Assembly, we have Nello Altamer, Diljit Brar, the Honorable Audrey Gordon, the Honorable Scott Johnston, Cindy Lamoureux, Tom Lindsay, Malaya Marcelino, Andrew Micklefield, Janice Morley Lecomte, the Honorable John Reyes, Mintu Sandhu, Ron Schuler, Bernadette Smith, Dennis Smook, Mark Vasiliou, and Matt Weed. We also have a few members of our Winnipeg community here representing various ethnic groups. From the Canadian-Polish Congress of Manitoba, we have the President, Jolanta Groznovsky. Also from the Canadian-Polish Congress of Manitoba, we have Simon Beale. From the Polish Association of Sokol St. Boniface, we have President John Bragan. I was just alerted I forgot Kathy Cox. My apologies. Thank you, Kathy Cox, for being here as well. And Dennis Smook. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you all. Today, we're all hurting. We have families and friends in Ukraine. We're here to share those heartbreaking stories, to support each other and make our voices heard. Our voices and pleas for immediate help. I know you're sharing those stories between yourselves and supporting each other, but I'd like to call a few people to the stage here to share their personal stories as well. I'd like to call Dmitro Malik. Dmitro?
Слава Україні! My name is Dmitro Malik, and I'm a recent immigrant from Ukraine to Manitoba. I came to Manitoba in 2014, at the same time when Putin was invading Ukraine, when he was invading Crimea and the Donbas territories. It's so painful and hurting to see what he is doing to Ukraine right now. We all witnessed a few days ago that he declared a war on Ukraine. He told us that Ukraine should not exist. Today, I wake up and I check my phone. My mother, she lives in the western part of Ukraine. She sent me a photo of herself and her students making camouflage nets to help Ukrainian forces. Imagine, students, teachers are making camouflage nets, others they're mixing Molotov cocktails. They should not be doing this. They should be sitting at their desks, studying at colleges and schools. However, they've chosen to stand up to this oppressive, authoritarian regime. We have to stand also with Ukraine. I would also like to just share another story. My aunt is a doctor in Zaporizhia, an industrial center that is clearly a target of Russian troops. She has chosen to stay there and serve her duty, helping patients. However, 2 days in a row, she had to hide in shelters from Russian helicopters and aircrafts. Again, doctors should be treating patients. They should not be hiding in shelters. I also just very shortly want to ask other ethnic communities, Russian communities, Belarusian communities, please contact your relatives there in Russia and Belarus. Let them know what's happening, that the whole free world is standing with Ukraine, and Ukraine will win. Слава Україні!
Дякую, Дмитро. Я ще попрошу Євгенію Татаренко підійти до мікрофону. Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Вітаю! Мене звати Євгенія Татаренко, і я просто маленька українка. Hello, I'm Ukrainian, and I'm little Ukrainian, and my name is Evgenia Tatarenko, and I'm here standing like frozen, little one, like as Ukraine is feeling right now. And what do we see? We were thinking that Ukraine is small, that Ukraine can't defend itself, but what do we see? After 3 days of the war, Ukraine showed the power of its nation. Ukraine showed how strong we are. Ukraine showed how brave we are. We officially rename it Molotov's cocktail to Bandera smoothie. This war is already in books of history of the world. Let's make this world the shortest war in the history. Let's finish this war. Let's help our Ukrainians. Let's help everyone as much as you can. And telling you a little bit more about myself. I'm not just a little Ukrainian. I also have a family in Ukraine. I have my mom. Last year I lost my dad due to a horrible disease. My mom is alone there. She lives in Zaporizhzhia region, so she lives just 136 kilometers from Donetsk. And can you imagine, she is alone there. She is staying there without any help, without an opportunity to withdraw any cash from ATMs or banks. No gas, no cash, no opportunity to buy any products. But she's there, and we made the decision that my tries to try to evacuate her from Ukraine will be over, and we will continue to fight as much as I can, as much as each of you can. Thank you. And as I was driving here, I got the request from Ukraine and from the territorial defense, and this is what I hold here. So this is the list of medical supplies they need. So I ask all politicians and everyone, I ask Canada, help all those 37,000 of people, so 37,000 of volunteers who decided to go and fight for Ukraine. I ask you, help them. They don't have medical supplies in Ukraine. There is no medical supplies. Canada, please help them. Canada, buy and sell. And please ship all those medical supplies. Help them today. Thank you, everyone. Slava Ukraini! Slava Ukraini! Slava Ukraini! Evgenia, the Ukrainian! Дуже дякую, Женю. Я ще попрошу до мікрофона Наталю Кравець.
Шановні друзі, дякую. 23 лютого мій тато святкував день народження. Йому виповнилось 65 років. Після привітань тато розказав, як моя родина збирається святкувати його ювілей. Я, в свою чергу, з ним поділилася нашими планами приїхати літом до України, щоб мої батьки нарешті змогли побачити свого внука Левка, який народився 2 роки тому. Що було далі, можна описати лише як страшний сон. О 8:45 вечора ми бачили, як президент Росії оголошує війну в Україні. О 9 вечора ми бачимо перші кадри CNN, які показують палаюче небо над Києвом і звуки бомб, які линуть звідусюди. Це була найстрашніша і найдовша ніч в моєму житті. Неподалік будинку моєї родини збивають декілька ворожих ракет. Моя родина приймає рішення тікати на захід. Моє життя перевернулося, коли я читаю повідомлення від моєї сестри. Якщо ми помремо, будь ласка, попіклуйся про моїх дітей. Вони 12 годин виїжджали з Києва. По дорозі люди просили, проїжджаючи машини, забирати їхніх дітей, щоб дати їм шанс на життя. Останні 2 дні були днями страху, відчаю, фізичного болю і всепоглинаючого почуття повної неспроможності і безвиході. Мабуть, як багато із вас, я запитувала себе, чому так сталося, що я тут, а вони там? Чому я прокидаюся у теплій хаті, а українці сидять на голому бетоні у бомбосховищах? Сьогодні ці емоції змінилися почуттям рішучості і досягненням конкретних цілей. Наша українська діаспора в спільноті завжди славила своєю згуртованістю, щедрістю і любов'ю до України. За останні 3 дні я отримала десятки повідомлень від твоїх друзів з Канади, Америки, Європи, Азії. Всі вони питаються, як вони можуть допомогти. Це велике щастя мати таку підтримку наших друзів. А допомогти є чим? Я б хотіла бачити, як моя друга батьківщина Канада відкидає візовий режим і відкриває свої двері для українських біженців. Я б хотіла бачити потужну допомогу Україні під час і після її перемоги у війні для подолання гуманітарної катастрофи і відновлення української економіки. Я впевнена, що Канада, яка завжди так підтримувала Україну, відкриє свої двері для наших співвітчизників. Я дуже вірю, що у дуже близькому майбутньому ми будемо з вами святкувати перемогу тут, над Росією. Бо, як казав великий Кобзар, в своїй хаті своя правда, сила і воля. Перемога за нами! Слава Україні!
Слава Україні! Смерть ворогам! Дякую, Наталю. Понад усе! Понад усе! Я би хотіла, щоб ми зараз заспівали червону калину. And I will ask our Premier, Heather Stephenson, to come up to the stage while we're lighting up the legislative building. Thank you, Premier.
Thank you very much, everyone, and for our continued act of solidarity for our friends and our family in Ukraine, and for the more than 180,000 Manitobans of Ukrainian descent. Tonight, we are lighting up the top of the legislature in the colors of the Ukrainian flag in blue and yellow, and they should be on almost momentarily. I think they're up there now to light them. And again, thank you all for being here tonight. These will be illuminated every night for the coming days and weeks ahead in our support, our solid support for Ukraine. Thank you again for everyone for being here tonight.
As our rally's formal program in support of Ukraine comes to an end, I would like to thank all of you for coming out with your signs, flags, and national Ukrainian colors. The energy and sheer numbers of the sea in blue and yellow in front of us is overwhelming and confirms that Ukraine is not alone. The Ukrainian armed forces and the Ukrainian people are resisting and will fight for their freedom until the day the Russian aggressor is expelled from their land. The governments of the free world state that they stand with Ukraine, but they must do so in action, not only in words. All efforts must be marshaled in the coming days in support of the Ukrainian people's right to sovereignty and self-determination. Waiting to determine the efficacy of current sanctions will be far too late. Putin and his criminal regime must be defeated and vanquished to a footnote in history, along with all tyrants and despots. The Ukrainian spirit is strong, and with the help of the diaspora and its allies, Ukraine and the Ukrainian people will prevail. May God protect Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. Glory to Ukraine and glory to her heroes. Слава Україні! Тепер попрошу поспівати «Ще не вмерла Україна!» Ще не вмерла наші воріженьки, як роса на сонці, запануєм і ми, браття, у своїй сторонці, душу тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Слава Україні! Україна! Понад усе! Україна! Понад усе!
This was a live stream from Winnipeg, Manitoba on day 3 of the war
Я обіцяю, далі
in
можемо
2022.
кричати, обіймати одне одного. Збройні сили України та українці будуть стояти до кінця!